is the key, but what I think is so interesting about your journey, and it's like, obviously you've had these like syncs, like all these, I feel like everything seems to, especially in retrospect, line up so perfectly to teach you the things you need to teach, to help you acquire the skills you need to have to do the thing you're currently doing right now, even if you're not aware of
Yeah,
it. But one
exactly.
theme I think that I can definitely deeply relate to, that I think a lot of people can relate to, is this sort of way that pain or suffering can become a catalyst for deeper understanding or knowing of your true self. Like in your bio, I mentioned this like off camera that I really loved and
Yeah.
resonate to, but like you mentioned, like pain can become like a portal to beauty. And
Yeah.
for some people, like when you're in the middle of experiencing pain, like when you're in the midst of like a terrible, horrible migraine, like there, it's
Mm.
hard to tell somebody, hey, look at the beauty. They're like, shut the fuck up. Like,
Right.
it's like
Oh,
when
for
you're
sure.
in the middle of it, it's harder to do. But ultimately, if you can do that over time, that's a good thing, to be able to shift your consciousness toward the experience.
Yeah,
But in retrospect, you can see how these things are teaching you something. And so I find that to be such
absolutely.
a beautiful sort of lesson in life, to see
Mm.
that like the experiences that we have can become catalysts for great transformation, even if they're negative,
Yes.
quote unquote, negative
Negative. Right,
experiences,
right,
right? And
right.
so I'm curious for you, like had that experience kind of embodied through these migraines that
Yeah,
you've had, like
yeah,
how do you, is like because I know you work with a lot of people, do who are discovering themselves through meditation, through yoga nidra,
yes.
through these practices, like how do you help someone see that for themselves? Like what would be like a tactic you might
Mm-hmm.
be able to like bring to someone who's dealing with a lot of pain? Like how can you help them move through that
Mm.
process?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question and a really important one. A is that, we are all human beings, right? So the way I teach is so much about the collage of our human experience. Like I always view emotions as, instead of like that negative, positive thing, that like the attachment, the aversion, like, oh, I want to feel good in my body all the time, which is not really the case, but instead of looking at it as like, yeah, positive or negative, it's just they're different experiences,
Mm-hmm.
allowing you to just be more intimately connected with who you are and just the colors and shapes of your own experiences.
Yeah.
So instead of judging it as good or bad, it's more about through the lens of curiosity. And
Yeah.
just, I always say, like, can you give yourself compassion and grace for just how much we can hold and feel at once? Because
Yes.
it's not only, even though, especially let's say you are going into, I mean, stillness too is probably one of the most challenging things for people to do these days, myself
Mm-hmm.
included. Um, the moment you try to become still enough, your mind is like the first thing to just flood your experience, right?
Yeah.
Because it's
Oh
like, I
yeah.
don't know what to do. Here, think of everything from the past and the future. But also, when you're asking people, okay, tune into your physical body, start to pay attention, the loudest thing is going to be probably what does not feel good.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you can continue to stay with your awareness and notice, okay, well, what feels good in your body,
Yeah.
or where is there no sensation? And then you start to train yourself to become aware of those more subtle, quiet sensations, because the mind is always loud, the pain is always loud, but the heart and the intuition travels in this like subterranean, intuitive, quiet level, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm always here,
Yeah.
but you just have to sift through all the noise. And it
Yeah.
takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. So
Definitely.
it's like giving yourself the compassion, the time, the patience, which takes a lot of practice. Where I'm from New
Yeah.
York, like it, it's a practice, right? I'm not
Yeah.
always patient. Like,
Yeah. Right.
it's like, okay, I come to these practices because I need them, not because
Yeah.
I'm a master at them, right?
Yep. Exactly. I
So,
love it. Yeah.
yeah, I think something that's helpful, and in yogic philosophy too, there's the five koshas, or
Mm-hmm.
the sheaths, which is just coverings. It's not quote unquote like real. It's just
Yeah.
what we kind of think of as real. So it's the physical body, you dive beneath that layer. Then there's like the breath and the energetic body. then there's the mental, the emotional, and then the bliss body. So
Yeah.
it's just this like constant, like peeling back an onion,
Yeah.
peeling back the layers of your experience to find your truth, right? To
Yeah.
find who you are on the inside, um, without all the masks or the noise, the pain that we think defines us,
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
but may just be a doorway, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that doorway into clarity or inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like to think of it as like a radical space of like openness, of allowing,
yeah, yeah,
of like trying to like let go of the shackles of control, like to try to control your
yeah,
experience. But it's so
yeah.
freaking hard to
It's
do.
so
And
hard.
it's like,
And
yeah,
I
go
think when
ahead.
we're in pain,
Hmm.
the right away is like, how can I make this better? How can I
How can
make
it
this
go away?
better?
Yeah, go away,
How
go
can
away.
I make this go away? But instead of just honoring like, okay, and being with that feeling without always trying to change it, right? And I think
Hmm.
that's why pain is becomes that portal into beauty or wisdom or understanding, is because it's so hard to be anywhere else
Yeah.
when the pain is like taking up your full awareness. So you're
Yes.
kind of invited fully into that sensation, fully into the present moment, where instead of resistance, right? What we resist persists. I always love
Yeah.
that quote. But
Yeah.
it's like what is it? What we accept changes most easily. So
Yeah.
there's this surrender, right? There's this letting
Hmm.
go and letting yourself experience sometimes discomfort. We
Yeah.
always want the positive, right? And it's like,
Exactly.
okay, how can we practice being in the place of the witness, right?
Yeah.
Not good, not bad, just neutrality in the heart.
Yeah, exactly.
A
And it's,
challenge.
but it is such a challenge. But I think the more you can like be able to be comfortable sitting with the craziness of your own thoughts and allowing those thoughts to run themselves around without like trying to
Yeah.
jump into them and drive them to a particular place, but allowing like almost like I love the metaphor of like a glass that's like filled with dirt and like shaking it. And like if you sit there and you just watch it, eventually it will, by just letting it be, not doing anything, just letting it be still, eventually all the mud and the dirt settles down and it finds its clarity again.
Mm,
So in a way, it's
love
like we
that.
got to like let ourselves sit
Let
and
the
let the
dirt sit.
chaos go and just watch it and find some entertainment and just
Yeah.
watching how ridiculous the inner workings of our
Right.
minds can be with it. I always try to bring a sense of humor to it because I just see the
Yeah, me too.
craziness. and
Yeah.
and then eventually though it does settle with time, and I think that's the hardest hurdle for a lot of people who are really
Hmm.
practicing or trying to get into these practices, is because
Yeah.
they want that clear state right away, but
Yeah.
it's just not how it works. Like you have to work that process of
Yeah.
identification with what it
Yeah.
is that you might be attaching to, and then the constantly letting go, letting go
Yeah.
over and over again.
And the reminder too that I think we want it to be this destination, but it's not permanent, right? Like
Yeah.
we're
Hmm.
not going to be this like and the job of the mind isn't to be still. It's
Yeah.
like it's our mind's job to think. And I taught a meditation, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, about, you know, when your mind feels really busy, instead of being like angry at your mind for thinking or whatever you want to say, like maybe it's like, oh my God, my mind, like the churning, right? The waves
Yeah.
of thought. Can you kind of visualize them like your thoughts at play with one another? And how does
Oh.
your thoughts playing together, how does that shift how you witness what your mind is
Hmm.
doing? Like, what if
Yeah.
your thoughts just want to be playful and dance around, or they're painting together, or whatever it is you want to like visualize? But I just think it really depends on how we judge ourselves in those moments.
Yeah. Like
Instead of
just
like,
the
oh, my mind needs
reframing.
to shut off. Yeah. Because
Yeah, exactly.
meditation isn't about just stilling the mind and that's it.
Yeah.
It's remembering, forgetting. It's in the moment where you realize you went
Hmm.
off to some place totally
God knows
different
where.
and saying, okay, and then you bring yourself back. It's that moment of like,
Exactly.
coming back again and again and again and again.
Exactly.
So
It's
that's
yeah, that
it.
starting over. Like I think you probably know who Sharon Salzberg is, who's like a
Oh yeah.
really big meditation teacher, really
Yeah.
big in teaching like compassion meditation, meta
Yes.
practice, which
Yes.
is so powerful and important.
So
But
powerful.
but she talks a lot about just like starting over again. Don't be afraid to
Mm-hmm.
start over again, not only in this meditation, but in your whole freaking life. Just
That's
start
it.
over.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
real wonky. You can all like you always have the freedom to start over. It just will you allow yourself to do it.
Yeah.
I want to circle back real
Exactly.
quick to the pain thing because I think that's really great advice about like trying to be aware of not just like the loud sensations that are
Mm,
trying to really bang the drum to get your attention, but
right.
just, it's like a kid. I think of like a kindergarten class, like all the personalities, and you got the kid who's like
Totally.
banging the drum in the corner, wants your attention. You're like, yeah, you need to attend to them, but like at the same time, you have to be aware that there's other voices in the room and there's other energies there, and you have to kind of be able to
Exactly.
curb your attention to these subtler spaces as
Yeah.
well.
Because their voices, they might not be audible, right? They might
Mm-hmm.
be speaking with body language,
Sensation. Yeah.
with sensation, with not speaking is
Yeah.
also speaking, right?
Yes.
Like there's
Mm-hmm.
these other ways. And I think that goes back to like my love for the invisible. It's like, well, what can we see that
Yeah.
maybe isn't so there in front of you? You know, like
Yeah.
what can you feel? What can you intuit with your senses and your heart
Mm-hmm.
beyond the representational that your eyes can quote
Exactly.
unquote see, you
Yeah,
know?
because most of us, I would say a lot of people who can see, have the ability to see, whether they're born to be
Yes.
able to see or they've been able to keep their sight through life, like
Mm-hmm.
we attach so much power to that one particular sense. And I think for
Mm-hmm.
anyone who does have their vision, like I would say most of us attach a lot to that particular sense door.
Mm.
And I think a lot of times what I think yoga practice and meditation practice taught me is how to bring more equity to my senses, and
Yeah.
pay more attention to the
Yeah.
other senses, like, and not
Yeah.
relying so much upon just seeing, but
Totally.
seeing how like there's a whole feeling process within you using all your senses at once to really fully know something with your whole body mind. And that's like a totally amazing experience. But with the pain thing that
Absolutely.
I found interesting for myself is through not only like experiencing illness and like really
Mm.
difficult pain through that at points in my life, but even like an acute situation, like on a meditation retreat where you're sitting forever
Mm.
and like the pain in the hips or the knees or the back
Yeah.
come up, like to dive into it. And it is unbelievable, like when you're in a space of allowing that pain to be there and not running away from it, but moving toward it and into it with like what what you were talking about with curiosity to kind of
Yeah.
understand it. All of a sudden, like I had firsthand experience, you probably had this experience where that pain all of a sudden, just like it flipped to the other side and became pure bliss. It was unbelievable. It was like an explosion
Yeah.
from like this excruciating pain to this
Yes.
unimaginable feeling of ecstasy
Wow.
through all my whole body. And just so seeing that, like that one experience like changed my life. So when I feel pain, of course I'm going to feel pain like a normal person, but I think I'm going to
Hmm.
pause a little bit more and I'm not going to
Yeah.
run away so quickly, and I'm going
The
to
moment that it becomes
yeah,
uncomfortable. And I like I thank you for sharing that. It's so powerful, right?
it
Because I think
is.
we tend to visualize opposite emotions as exactly what they are, opposite, like something like this, but I kind of visualize them on one thread. They're just on opposite ends. But the
Mm-hmm.
moment we realize, like, oh, they're going to dissolve and meet somewhere in the middle.